the Hollywood Demon series came out with an episode called Dark Side of the Power Rangers, covering things like curses and other dark things that happen behind the scenes. Most people who know me know that I'm obsessed with college football and country music, but a lot less people know that I'm also a huge Power Rangers fan. This is a franchise that's been with me since almost the very beginning, so it's very near and dear to my heart. As a longtime fan, I felt compelled to make a video on this topic and give my thoughts on the documentary. Quick disclaimer guys, we are going to be covering some very heavy topics in this video, so please be advised. Anyways, let's get started. Here are my thoughts on the dark side of the Power Rangers. Let's start off by talking about the man himself, Haim Saban. This is the man that gave us Power Rangers, but he's also a very controversial figure. Even before Power Rangers, Saban was already making money in the entertainment industries in very unique ways. One thing that was actually kind of ingenious was composing music for various TV shows and then making royalties off that music. During the 1980s, Saban was on a trip to Japan, and one day in his hotel room, he noticed this TV show of 5 color-clad superheroes fighting bad guys, and decided to take that novel concept to America. So for those that are not aware, a lot of the fight scenes in Power Rangers actually comes from a Japanese show called Super Sentai. And what Saban was basically doing was taking pre-recorded Japanese footage, splicing it in with newly shot American footage, and creating a whole new show out of it. It took a couple years, but finally in 1993, Money Morphin Power Rangers took off. The show was an absolute hit to kids everywhere, myself included, but things were not always pretty behind the scenes. See, the original MMPR was non-union, which basically gave the actors very little bargaining power, and the filming conditions were not always ideal. For any sports fans in the audience, this was basically college football before NIL became a thing. Anyways, one of the original actors actually talks about her time filming the pilot episode. For those who don't know, the original Yellow Ranger was not actually Thuy Trang, but a non-Asian actress named Audrey Dubois. She had mentioned that during the filming of the pilot, one of the putty patrollers actually passed out because he was wearing a wetsuit and it was 110 degrees outside. The cast had agreed that they would not continue to film until this guy got an ambulance and was rushed to the hospital. But instead, Haim offered $100 to anybody that would be willing to put on the wetsuit and continue filming. Until now, we never got a definitive answer on why Dubois had quit the show, but this story definitely paints a picture. This obviously made a lot of people upset, but it didn't stop there. After their initial contract ended, 3 of the original Rangers, Austin St. John, Thuy Trang, and Walter Emmanuel Jones, tried to fight back for a better contract, but unfortunately, this backfired and the 3 actors were fired from the show. Even beyond MMPR, the casting process was not always transparent, and oftentimes it was managed very poorly. In the documentary, Nakia Breeze talks about how she was abruptly written off the show. So to give you guys some backstory, after Power Rangers Zeo, Jason David Frank was pretty much checked out at that point and wanted to leave the show to pursue other projects. For years, it was believed that the other senior Rangers also wanted to leave the show, but we found out many years later that was not the case. In the episode, Nakia talks about how she was informed about an open casting call. I don't think they say this in the documentary, but after that casting call, the Rangers had approached the production crew and they completely denied that they were casting 4 new Rangers. I'll tell you guys, even as a kid, I was completely blindsided by this. Even during the mid-season finale, there was no indication that any of the Rangers were going to get replaced. However, just a couple episodes later, all 4 senior Rangers, including my childhood hero, Jason David Frank, were all abruptly written off the show. And unfortunately, show business is not always kind, especially when you're typecast. There are former Rangers like Walter Emmanuel Jones, who was very talented, but hasn't always been able to secure roles in Hollywood. People see that you're a Power Ranger, and in a way it almost makes it look like you're damaged goods. Based off the feedback from several actors, Saban's approach was very impersonal, and it always seemed like profit outweighed the best interests of people. So it's really not a surprise that many former actors do not speak highly of him. Quick announcement before we get to theme number 2. We're still a pretty young channel, and we would love your support. Consider supporting Ranger Business by subscribing, liking, commenting, and turning on notifications for all the latest updates. Alright, back to the show. Second theme covered in the documentary is this life of crime that unfortunately some Rangers get caught up in after their time in the show ends. There's a couple mentioned in the film. I don't want to talk about all of them here, but the one that gets a lot of focus is Ricardo Medina Jr., who played the Red Ranger Cole on Power Rangers Wild Force. In the documentary, they interviewed the woman who was the brother of the man that got into that physical altercation with Medina. Reportedly, what had happened was, years back, this woman had gone on a date with Medina and she thought it was a one and done thing. Several years later, she talks about opening up a pet shelter and gets back into contact with Medina. She would pay all the money to get this thing set up and running, and Medina was going to be the one that looks after all the animals. Things didn't go so well, and there were many instances of Medina being very violent. As things got worse, this woman decided to bring her brother over to kind of work things out with Medina. And unfortunately, one day before Medina was supposed to be evicted, the two got into a physical altercation, and the man tragically passed away. This was a very sad story. When the news originally hit years back, a lot of fans were really blown away by this. Many fans even came to Medina's defense without knowing the true story. The documentary talks about something called the halo effect. Essentially what this means is, when you're used to thinking of someone or something in a positive light, the halo around them is very hard to pierce. In fact, some fans become so obsessive, they almost become indoctrinated. Not to use another college football reference, but think of how Michigan fans acted after the Connor Stalions investigation. In the end though, a young man was taken way too soon, and it was very tragic for everyone involved. Look, I think being a part of something bigger than yourself is great. That's why we gravitate towards things like media franchises, sports, and other groups of interest. That being said though, it's also important to realize that sometimes the people that we perceive to be as heroes are also everyday people just like you and me. We're humans. We all mess up. But what's important is that when we do mess up, we don't lose ourselves. Before we go into this last segment, I just want to preface by saying that I am not a mental health professional of any kind. However, through family members and friends, I've seen firsthand the tremendous toll mental health can take on a person. A lot of times, we watch our favorite shows as kids, meet these actors as adults, and all the while have no idea what's going on in their personal lives. Take, for example, Pua Magasiva, who played Shane Clark, the Red Ninja Storm Ranger. In 2019, Pua's life tragically ended. There was a lot of domestic violence issues in his marriage. Reportedly, Pua felt very ashamed by his actions and felt that he had let his fans down. A more recent story was Jason David Frank, who played Tommy Oliver. Growing up, Tommy was a huge childhood hero of mine, and I'm sure that he was the childhood hero to a lot of you watching this. Some of my favorite memories include the White Light two-parter, where Tommy descends like an angel, ready to lead the team as the new White Ranger. Getting the ninja powers in the MMPR movie. His continued role as a leader is what got me through Power Rangers Zeo and Power Rangers Turbo. In fact, had Selwyn Ward not been such a likable guy, I probably would have given up on Power Rangers after Tommy left. Recently at Power Morphicon, I actually told Selwyn that story. You can find it in part 3 of my Power Morphicon 2024 video. Anyways, I was blown away when JDF returned once again as Tommy in the 10-year anniversary Forever Red. And of course, his return as a regular cast member in Power Rangers Dino Thunder, where he was not only the new Black Ranger, but also the mentor to the 3 new Rangers. Unfortunately though, there was a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we were not aware of. After JDF's original departure from Power Ranger, a lot of things happened within a short span of just a couple years. Eric Frank, who was Jason's older brother and appeared on a couple episodes of Power Rangers Zeo, tragically lost his life in 2001. Around that time, Jason had also gone through his first divorce and had recently moved to Texas after meeting his second wife, Tammy. Despite everything he was going through, Jason still tried to be a hero in real life. In the documentary, there was a really touching story of how he stayed at the hospital with a fan who had gotten injured. He had asked Saban to bring toys to the hospital, stayed with the kid for several hours. This is something he didn't have to do, but he wanted to make every fan happy. We saw this in his conventions as well. He had a policy of meeting every last fan that stood in line, and oftentimes he'd have to reschedule flights, change hotels, because he always had long lines. My brother experienced this firsthand. Every other celebrity had left, but JDF was still there signing autographs. Demons come in all shapes and sizes though. In 2017, at Phoenix Comic-Con, a man dressed as the Punisher came in heavily armored with the intention of harming JDF. All the while, Jason was experiencing his own mental health struggles that are highlighted in much more detail in the documentary. On November 19th, 2022, Jason David Frank's life tragically ended. This news really hit me hard. I remember waking up that morning, very first thing I saw was the news of JDF's passing. At first, I didn't want to believe it. I told my brother for years and years I was going to meet JDF, and now I can never get a chance to. In the episode, stunt director Jeff Pruitt talks about a conversation he once had with Jason. He mentioned to Jason that after they've done everything they want to do, they can just be done, but not today. That line reminded me a lot of Apollo Creed's demise in Rocky IV. He wanted to go out while he was on top, not when he was old and shriveled up in a bed. As a Power Rangers fan, not meeting Jason David Frank is easily my biggest regret. But this story does have a happy ending. A couple years back, my brother had gone to a convention and was able to meet JDF, David Yost, and Walter Jones in person. David and Walter were allowed to give video shoutouts, but Jason was not. Despite a recent fallout my brother and I had, he still got in line to ask for a video. And even though he wasn't allowed to, Jason David Frank gave me a birthday shout out.
Hey Jimmy, happy birthday. Just signed some white and green ranger stuff with your brother.
Hey!
Right, your brother?
Yep, it's my brother indeed.
Alright. Happy birthday, Jimmy.
In 2024, during Power Morphicon, we were able to share the story with Sky Frank. So even though we couldn't meet face to face, I was able to meet Jason David Frank in almost a spiritual kind of way. But anyways, that'll do it for this video. What did you guys think of the Dark Side of the Power Rangers documentary? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're at it, be sure to subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications for all the latest updates. Alright, we'll see you in the next one.